You're with Good Evening India here on CNN IBN. Now, the question that we're putting out today after a gruesome incident that took place in Bengaluru city, where a Tanzanian national was stripped and beaten up. The question we're asking is whether Indians are increasingly becoming racist, because this is not the first time an incident like this has taken place. And I'd just like to bring in our guest, Mr. Badshah Sen, senior journalist, joining us from here in New Delhi. Thanks very much, Mr. Sen, for being with us. And while we wait for some of the callers to pitch in with their queries and their comments, you know, the question is, this is not one-off. This is not a one-off incident, is it? And there is need for some sort of awareness campaign or something, like that. Because I was just doing some research, and there are several headlines that pop up, of similar incidents.
Yes, and in fact, I was also reading up a bit about this before I arrived in the studio. There have been at least 3 incidents involving Africans in less than 1 year, right, in Bengaluru. So, all right. So the point remains is it's not just, I mean, one expects that a city like Bengaluru, which everybody calls the IT capital of the world, doesn't need to be made aware. They do not need sensitization. How come they pass their IT exams? How come they deal with the rest of the world, which includes Africans, I'm quite sure, certainly black Americans all over the place? How come they manage to do that? And then there's the same city where they come from. I'm not necessarily pointing an accusing finger at the IT specialists, but this same city requires sensitization after it is dealing with the world at large. Where it comes from the world at large, I really don't think it requires sensitization. Now, the only sensitization that is required, and if I was in Singapore, I would apply the same law here, is a harsh caning in public. That's what they would do in Singapore. I'm sorry to say, but this is exactly what is required here in India against crimes such as this. Sensitization of the backside, quite frankly.
Okay, all right. Just hold on for a moment, Mr. Sen. I'd just like to bring in our first caller, Mr. Chiman Gandhi, calling in from Mumbai. Good evening. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
I read the TV clips. I am very much ashamed of whatever has happened. Right. But the question is, the creditability of Tanzanian or Nigerian people are not well here in India. But because of their handling and going through some mischievous places or drugs, that's why we don't have much respect for this such thing.
But Mr. Gandhi, that's exactly the question that we're talking about.
It is disgraceful to handle this way. We have many ways to handle it, but to blame disgrace our country also, because there are plenty of cases happening like this. There are hundreds of cases daily happening. India is a big country, but purposefully there is some purpose in this.
Right.
But you should accept that I cannot tolerate these things. This is a very bad thing happen to anybody.
Okay, Mr. Gandhi. Thanks very much for your call, Mr. Sen. I'm torn in that, with that kind of reaction, because that also encapsulates exactly. That is exactly the problem, Mr. Sen. I just like to just say one quick point, that this is exactly the point. That's the perception, and that is the perception that perhaps needs to be battled. Because they go into these places, like he said, and they're involved in some sort of cases. I mean, that's unfair.
Well, I'll just point out to you one thing, that Mr. Chiman Gandhi had the same surname as certainly a much bigger Gandhi in this country. All Gandhis are not the same. It's quite evident from what that guy said. And all Africans are not the same either.
Exactly.
In fact, having lived in Britain myself, and a lot of others, I'm sure you have, in fact you have also in London, when you face racial discrimination, which by the way there is much less than what you have here in India, there are a lot of people there who say, Indians are dirty, their cooking stinks, they're unclean, they're half naked. I mean, this is rubbish. This is the kind. Mr. Gandhi needs sensitization. I'm sorry to have to say this. He should read a few more works about his namesake. He should read by his namesake. A few more works of Mahatma Gandhi.
Right. No, absolutely. And the point is that That's the point. Even in this incident, Mr. Sen, isn't it? Because this incident was carried out by a Sudanese national who was driving that car. He committed a crime in that hit and run. And another person who happens to be an African national, and African also becomes a very generic word. It's how we say northeast or how we say south of the Vindhyas here in India. It becomes a very, very generic term. There is no distinction. Not that I'm saying lynching the Sudanese driver is fair, but I'm just saying, these are the kind of biases that we're looking at here in the country.
Yes, of course. I mean, he was Sudanese. The girl who was thrashed was a Tanzanian. They don't know the difference. It's, it's quite, it's like saying someone from Bangalore should be mistaken as someone from Bangladesh, let us say. If that kind of thing happens, I'm sure the Bengaluru guy will feel really incensed, as will the Bangladeshis. And it doesn't matter, I mean, the color of the skin. There was a person who committed a crime, I mean, mowed down someone. He should be arrested, and he should be prosecuted. But you can't have mob justice, and mob justice is bad enough. Then mob justice based on color, that's really bad.
Absolutely.
You know what happens is that in this country, we have a huge thing called soft power. There are large parts of this world which look at India because of our IT skills, or even of our Bollywood films, our music. We are destroying that soft power. We are one of the few countries in the world which is admired for a few of our international skills. But look at what's happening. I mean, our soft power is going to bits.
I'm just going to take in a few more callers, Mr. Sen. Rajiv Bhattacharjee calling in from Faridabad. Good evening, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, Mukherjee, it's the second time we're talking about the topic is more or less the same, but again, Bangalore, this is the second case I've heard. The first time I heard was in November 22nd last year, and the comment is the same, but I agree with Mr. Sen, who's the senior journalist sitting with you. I totally agree with his point. There's something wrong in the entire system set up in the country. We need to improve the entire thing, but how, when and where, again is the question. We have not planned out anything. We need to do something very severely to plan out, and it has to be an immediate action. Otherwise, I think we are in doldrums.
Okay, Mr. Bhattacharjee, thanks very much for calling in. Another caller, and this is going to be important, a caller from Bengaluru, Stella calling in. Good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to comment about the topic going on.
Yes.
Actually, this incident happened, but really you Indians, you're racist.
Ma'am, okay, ma'am, where are you from, if I may ask?
I'm in Karnataka, Bangalore.
Okay. No, and which country do you belong to, ma'am?
Me?
Yes.
I'm from South Africa.
Okay. Please, I would like to hear your comments. We have a senior journalist with us as well, Mr. Badsha Sen. Go ahead, ma'am. This is not the first time something like this has happened, and that's why we are taking it up. And that's what you said is part of the question that we're asking. Are Indians increasingly turning racist in these kind of situations? Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. Some days back.
Yes.
Yes, some days back. Hello?
Ma'am, if I could request you to just either switch off the television in front of you or reduce the volume, it will be easier.
2 Africans were knocked in Bangalore. But nothing happened. But now only one Indian has been knocked it's not something planned by accident, but you people, you've taken something to be too big.
Ms. Stella, when you experience these kind of unfortunate incidents, what kind of reactions do you get when you go to the authorities? For instance, the police, how has your experience been? Are you heard properly? Do you face racism even at the level of the police when you try to speak to them, register some sort of a complaint, you or your friends, ma'am?
Sorry?
I was asking you, ma'am, when these kind of incidents take place, when you go to the police, if you have, or if your friends have gone to the police, what kind of an experience do they have?
The thing is, first of all, we don't understand the language which is spoken in this nation. You find people talking Kannada, of which most of us are new in the place. You take your complaint to the police, they don't want even to attend to you because themselves, most of the policemen in the police, they're not understanding English, huh? You find you have a grievance, you want to address it to someone, no one is there to be addressed to. The police himself will tell you, Canada Balangla, and then he will walk away. How are we supposed to express ourselves before the nation? Fine, we understand we are Africans, we are here in the foreign nation, but the way we are being treated is really not good. You see? We want the Indians are not in our nation. Indians also are there in our countries, but this is not the kind of way we handle them. We are treating them with so much respect, of which we are not getting it back. Right. Our nations might be poor, not to raise their voices towards this kind of incidents.
Right.
And one caller earlier, he said that most of the Africans, their behaviors are not good, what they do. If one person commits a crime, let it not be expressed to the whole of the public. Like, what is being done should not be like a crime to each and everyone. For example, the incident right now, one person has committed a crime, and people have taken all Africans to be bad.
Ma'am, absolutely. In fact, we completely agree with everything that you've said, and those are some important points. Before I let you go, ma'am, if you could just, from your perspective, a few ideas, suggestions, or recommendations. If you can hear me, I was asking if you can give a few suggestions or recommendations about how we can tackle this. At a school level, at a larger level, what exactly do you think needs to happen? Because I'd also like to say that while you say that if one person commits a crime, everyone should not be painted by the same brush, the same logic also applies. Not every Indian also has behaved like that. There are lots of people who are willing to make...
my suggestion is...
Yes.
First of all, let them recruit, not only recruiting, let them teach the police guys how to speak our languages. Okay, they can't speak the languages, but at least let them learn the basic English, through which we can easily communicate back to them.
Right.
You see?
Okay, ma'am. Thanks very much, Ms. Stella, for calling in. And again, it's shameful for all of us as Indians to witness and read out these kind of headlines over and over again. It's absolutely shameful that something like this has happened here in India. But thanks very much for joining in and sharing your experience. And Mr. Sen, the first line that she said is, "You Indians are racist," and I think that's something that really sends a shiver when you hear it over and over again. I'm going to come back to that after a very short break, Mr. Sen. Hopefully we'll be joined by a few more callers and we'll continue that conversation. Please take a short break and come right back. All right, we're continuing to talk about that gruesome incident that came to light from Bengaluru city, where a Tanzanian national was reportedly stripped and paraded naked after an incident in the city of a hit and run that was committed reportedly by a Sudanese national, but the mob targeted this lady later on. An investigation is underway. A molestation case has been registered. Mr. T. Ramesh now joining in from Bengaluru. Good evening, sir. Please go ahead with your comments.
This incident is a very shameful incident, regardless the color of skin of the girl, whether it's a fair-skinned girl or a dark-skinned girl. True to the fact that there are 3 engineering colleges in the area, and we find lots of people traveling with the high speed with drunkenness and all sorts of bad behavior. True that local people have improved a lot economically because of these students. They got very high rents and a lot of shopkeepers have got good value for the money. But doesn't speak for their behavior. Totally wrong. And I'll tell you, within a space of 2 kilometers in that area, there are 3 engineering colleges which was granted by the government in a wrong manner. They shouldn't have granted an engineering college in that space within that range. And that was a different issue. But one thing, those people, whether they are colored or fat, I think their behavior is very, very wrong.
Right.
And moreover, the local people have also done a wrong thing in doing. It's a very shameful incident, and we hang our heads in shame because of the incident. But I do understand there was a long-term anger between the locals and this one towards their behavior. For that reason, it has happened. It is a shameful incident. I condemn it definitely because I never consider anything against women.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Mr. Peter Mishra, thanks very much for calling in. Mr. Badshah Sen, closing comments on something that we could keep talking about for hours and hours, because this is a topic that needs to be kept alive. And sadly, there is this feeling that is lingering, in certain spaces across India where you keep hearing of these kind of incidents. They've happened in Bangalore, they've happened in Delhi as well, and we attract a significant population from abroad as far as studies are concerned. So, this is a really, really negative image to go out.
Yeah, it's a negative image. Of course, today we've been focused on Africans in general, black Africans in particular, and that kind of thing. There have been incidents involving white women. There have been rapes and molestation of white women who are foreigners. There have been cases of students from the northeast being attacked in the same Bengaluru as also, as you said, in Delhi and Gurgaon and neighborhood. There are, let's take the internal racism in our midst. We have creams which make you fairer. For God's sake. Then you have dark women have less chance of getting married. We are, let's face it, an uncivilized nation. The more we get educated, the less civilized we seem to be getting. So in this situation, sometimes it might call for harsh action against such uncivilized people. So the first person to civilize are the police force. I agree with that lady from South Africa.
Yes.
The police force must be taught how to behave with people and must learn to implement the law. And part of the law is a non-discriminatory in nature.
Absolutely.
So the police should be first sensitized, and then they should harshly implement the law on such people. I think that should, send down a strong signal. But as people at large, we are uncivilized and we are racist. We have to accept that.
Right, that's a very, very sad reality that we need to start really talking about. Thanks very much, Mr. Badshah Sen, for being with us and taking those calls. As I said, this is something that needs to be spoken of in greater detail. So we are taking it up once again at 9 p.m. tonight as we wrap up this show. Do stay tuned to that show that is coming up with Zaka Jacob. Is India a racist country? It's not simply about the attack today that took place or yesterday that took place against a Tanzanian, but about repeated incidents against people from the northeastern part of the country and other parts of the country. This is something that is becoming more and more real, and we need to talk much more about it. So that's coming up on India at 9. Thanks very much for watching.